Clyde Clapp, Bruce Giudice, Greg Gustafson, and Ben Stopper for making the time to come out and be in the public spotlight here. It's not the easiest thing to do, so congratulations for coming out and being willing to answer these questions. Just so you know a little bit about how the questions were developed, I did reach out to each candidate and ask for what they thought was most important. They sent me their top issues, and then I, as the moderator, chose 13 questions that were most important based on what I heard back from these candidates. And so it was a very open process. These candidates did get the question list in advance, so they can be prepared to answer them and not be caught off guard. So we're going to go through these questions. We do have a time constraint. We only have this hall until 8:30. And so around 7:50, 8 o'clock, I will be asking the candidates to make their closing statements. So we should end around 8 o'clock or a little bit after. And you will have the opportunity to ask the candidates questions in small groups after we finish the formal Q&A with me. But during the Q&A that I'm asking them, please do not shout anything out from the audience. Please do not interrupt the candidates. I want this to be a respectful and professional evening. We're all here to listen to what they have to say, so I encourage you to all be respectful. And also, candidates, if you would please not interrupt one another. I am going to give all of you a chance to give a 1-minute rebuttal for each question, so if you do have something to say based on another candidate's statement, please hold it until you have that 1 minute. Also, just want to give you the format, so I'm going to start out with each candidate making a 2-minute opening statement. Then I will ask questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. I will alternate, so each question is going to a new person each time. And then there's a voluntary 1-minute response. Once we get to the end of the time limit, I will give each candidate 3 minutes to make a closing statement. And then the Q&A portion will conclude, and you can ask questions in small groups. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and just start with Mr. Clapp on the far end with the opening statement, and then we'll move in a clockwise direction. So here you go, Mike.
Can everybody hear me? I'm real bad about speaking up. I'm Clyde Clapp. I'm supervisor of District 5. And if you live in District 5, that's probably all you do. That's where I'm your supervisor. I moved here 42 years ago. I've been active in the community most of my life up here. I haven't just started out. I've been active with the asphalt plant. Many numerous things. Carson, if you don't mind, came in. I was supposed to.
Clyde, speaking to the mic.
And you want to be better?
Yeah.
Your mouth. And so anyway,
Put the mic up to your mouth.
and so anyway, I opposed the marijuana ban. That's the reason I ran for supervisor, and so that's the main reason I ran. This is my neighborhood. This is where I live. And if I can't preserve my neighborhood, I don't really want to be here. There's no reason for me to be here. And it took me 5 years to move from the Bay Area up here because it liquidated my property down there and reinvesting up here. It took 5 years. It's taken me the same amount of time to leave from this area to another area. And at my age, I'd rather do something besides moving. And so that's basically who I am. I'm pretty upfront about what my positions are. I don't hit around the bush about it. And so if you're really looking for marijuana, I am not your man.
I'm Bruce Giudice. I'm a native Californian, a product of our public school system, finishing with a master's degree in agricultural economics from UC Davis. Our family has lived in Rancho Calaveras since 1990. Our 2 girls attended local public schools through Calaveras High School. And while I have been active in many volunteer organizations, what I bring to the supervisor position is education, experience, and judgment that I believe is superior to the other candidates running. Critical decisions will be made at the Board of Supervisors level in the next 4 years. We have ongoing funding needs, including policing and code enforcement, that must be addressed. Our general plan will have to be updated and approved. And a long-term vision for our county needs to be defined and promoted. We need strong leadership in these and other areas with the flexibility, imagination, and practical understanding of both our potential and our limitations. The supervisor position is a job that has some basic requirements. You must live in the district and be of voting age. Beyond that, it's up to the voter to decide what skills are needed. As I said earlier, I hold a master's degree in economics from the University of California at Davis, a school with an excellent reputation. My work experience includes working for 20 years as a chief financial officer or fiscal director in public agencies that run in a similar fashion to this county. I've taught 5 years of college accounting and have co-managed a veterinary clinic business for 5 years. I know the limits and powers of being on a board, having served on the boards of 8 nonprofit organizations as either president, vice president, secretary, or treasurer. Through my work and volunteer experience, I understand the practical need to avoid any hint of conflicts of interest. Possible conflicts include having skin in the game, being part of the Good Old Boys Network, or receiving campaign contributions from organizations or individuals who bring business to the board for approval. I will have no part of any of that. I bring an auditor's eye to all I do, something I believe that is needed on this board. At this critical time in our county's development, we need a supervisor with skill set and independent perspective that I will provide, and I hope that after this forum, you will agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. I am Greg Gustafson. Let's see, I bought some land up here in 1986 from a radio ad, the guy named Hap Harper. Anybody know Hap Harper? Anybody here? So he used to fly over in his plane and give reports and tell everybody, come on up here and buy land, you know, like Lake of the Pines or some of these other areas. So we all investigate, decide where we're going to go and find out, you know, where would be a nice place to live, raise a family, something like that. Well, my wife and I used to come up here dating. They would give us free golf at the golf course, and we went so far as to buy a lot, build a house, get married in the house, and have the reception in the clubhouse at the golf course. Fabulous meal. My point of going that direction is, I live here. I wanted to live here. I have raised my daughter here. I've seen so many kids grow up, come through the town. I've tried to help with everything from band to who knows what. I've set up chairs across the way for 25 years. And I believe it's really important to be involved in your community. When I was appointed to the Planning Commission, one of the first things I did was make a phone call to code enforcement because there was 2 trailers that were past the Zippy Mart as you leave town. They sat there and they said, post holds dug, and it had a phone number on it. I said, I am so sick of looking at those stupid trailers, and it just ruined the landscape there. Within seconds, they removed the trailers, and he was happy to do it. Furthermore, I just want to say, I'm here to make your lives better as well. Nicer roads, better environment, street signs, downward lighting, something that will help all of you live in your homes, feel safer and more comfortable, and a beautiful area to live. Thank you.
My name is Benjamin Stopper. I moved to Calaveras County in 1983 from Amador County with my parents. I grew up here. I graduated from Calaveras High School. My wife graduated from Calaveras High School, who's here tonight. We have 3 sons that have graduated from Calaveras High School, and I have a younger daughter that is currently attending Jenny Lane Elementary, and we have 2 young grandchildren born into Calaveras County. My interest peaks through involvement through multiple community organizations. I've been very involved for quite some time in the school district. I am on multiple nonprofits and have instated things successfully through those. The soccer fields when I was in the Calaveras Youth Soccer League, when I was head field coordinator, was one of the best times that the fields have been, and they've degraded since I've had to leave that organization. And I want to provide a solid economic future for our future generations while maintaining the rural character that we all love and live here for. It's a beautiful county. I'm pro Calaveras. I'm pro the people. And I would like to get your vote. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me on this smaller one? No? Okay.
Barely. You gotta turn the mic on.
Yeah, sorry. Can anyone hear me on the smaller one? Is this better? Yeah. Okay, we're going to move into questions now. Bruce, you're going to get the first response to this. So, question number 1, the role of the supervisor. What do you believe is the role of the county supervisor? Where do you think the line is drawn between the role of the county board member and providing work direction to county staff? You have 2 minutes.
Well, the supervisor, there's no real written job description for a supervisor, but I believe that first thing is that the supervisor represents his or her constituents. They supervise departments and respects the staff that work for them, approve and oversee budgets, interacts with other agencies that are outside of the county, so it can be within the county, like school districts or water district. Assesses and responds to general community needs, so if there's a general need that talks about like a road problem or a street sign problem, that's something we can deal with. And provides vision and leadership for long-term county planning. And so works to enact a vision that everybody has bought into and understands the same direction we're going. The county board member has no authority as an individual outside the boardroom. He or she holds power as part of a group of 5 representatives. Any interaction with county staff is restricted to information gathering only. Committees and task forces authorized by the board can recommend action but take no action. And any use of county resources needs to get a majority of the board as a whole. I fully understand the following set procedures and processes is very important in transparent democracy.
You're up.
Should we continue to stand up, sit down, or do we sit?
If you're willing to stand, that's fine, and sitting's fine too, whatever you're comfortable with.
I think sitting. Folks, sitting. The job of a county supervisor, I think you need to be the communicator. I think you need to be the person who someone can come to and explain their problems and perhaps collaborate, find someone else with similar needs, and then progress to put issues together to solve issues. Not everyone has the same issues. Some people have similar issues, and we've got to provide our services as a county to everyone. And there's certain things that just don't seem to make the transition. And we have some roads that are county roads, some that are funded by homeowners associations and situations like that. And that's going to be a real problem and confusion in the future because some areas are on sewer systems, some are on septic. If you want to combine the two, they would assess everybody, and it used to be a $25,000 number, now it's a $50,000 number, and who knows where all that will go. But primarily, as a supervisor, you should be listening and trying to absorb all the needs of the people and be able to respond accordingly, and maybe communicate with the other supervisors to find a common ground that you can all accomplish your needs. Thank you.
The role of a supervisor is to set policy and give direction as a majority, to listen to your constituents and your residents in your community and represent them as a whole. Listen to the facts and make your judgments on the facts that are presented. When it comes to the line drawn when you're delegating the responsibilities among staff, as a supervisor, the role of you being boss goes to the CAO, the department heads that are appointed, and at that point, the line is drawn where the staff underneath them is their responsibility to delegate the responsibilities further. When it comes to the Board of Supervisors does approve budgets, as has been said. When it comes to oversight of budgets, the CAO and the auditor hold that responsibility. That responsibility of moving the finances around, finding out whether these are restricted funds, so on and so forth, and if they can be used in a general fund way. That answers the question.
So the question is, what's the function of a supervisor? I represent District 5 in the county, and so the interest of District 5 is what I put priority. I have to work with the other board members because it takes 3 votes to get anything done. And if you can't get 3 votes, you're nothing. So you can be the smartest guy on the board, and the other board members won't work with you. You are not representing your district because you can't get anything for your district. And so that's one of my strengths is I'm a people person, and I usually can come up with the 2 extra votes I need. And sometimes it comes from somebody you wouldn't even think. Like on the TOT tax is, when I put that up, is I actually worked with Gary Minning on that and with Gary Tofanelli. And most people think that Gary, and he works here most of the time, that Jack and me are usually opposite side of the coin. But at times we do work together. And that's, you have to know what the other supervisors think, what they want, and what to do. Without that, you can't work with the board. And so that's the main function. So I represent District 5. District 5 has different needs than other districts. And so we put those difference aside at times. Like right now up in Arnold, they had bridges that went out. And so we had to put some of our priorities on hold because it's more important to get those bridges done in Arnold. So sometimes you do put your district second to another district because of an emergency or a disaster like that. Way I do is I've been in construction all my life, and so I work from the top down, so I'm very comfortable working with the CAO and pushing down. I do not like going to staff and telling staff what to do. That's cuts against me because I would never tell a foreman on a construction job what to do. That's not my function. My function is direct the policy and the direction we're going. And it's up to the CEO to carry out that function. If he can't do that, then I would give it to the CEO, and then he would have to get the new CEO, would have to get the other staff.
So I realize that wasn't the most controversial question, but you do have an opportunity for a 1-minute follow-up. Do any of the gentlemen want to use a 1-minute follow-up? Okay.
I agree that, that the supervisor does supervise the department heads and the CAO, but I think in order to appropriately ask questions of those people, you do have to get information from line staff from time to time. You have to understand what the issues are, and sometimes, talking with, there should be ways that we can get information from the departments without necessarily just having to go only to the department head. And so we can talk about different ways to do that. It's not undermining the authority of the department head, but still there has to be some ability to verify some of the information that comes from the department heads.
Mr. Stopper.
He is correct. We do need to we need to empower our employees so that they do have a say, because they know how these departments work throughout the county. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that it's not the job of the supervisor to go in and micromanage each individual department when it comes to budgets and so on. But we do need to fact check everything that comes before us, because it's the facts that we need to base our decisions on.
Any other follow-ups from either of you two? Okay, we're on to question number 2. This is coming to you first, Mr. Gustafson. And this may be what many of you came here for. We're talking about cannabis now. What is your position on commercial cannabis cultivation? And since the ban could be overturned by the next Board of Supervisors, would you support or oppose an effort to pass a regulatory framework for commercial cultivation? Mr. Gustafson.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is obviously our big question, but there are other issues. I've been going around door to door, talking to people all over, and it is a hot button issue, but if my job at this very moment were to vote the wishes of the people so far to me are outweighing that they want marijuana in this area to be grown so they can get the tax money. It's such a narrow margin that I, as a voter in your behalf, would want to be sure that I have everyone's opinion. And it's a funny issue for me. I lived in Marin for years. It was very common there. Everybody, hang out. There's lots of rock and roll bands and everything else going on there. But the illegal aspect of the drug is the problem, that it was illegal for years. Now they're kind of trying to switch it. It's a soft switch. It's not really a federal issue yet to allow it. So here we are. We allowed it to happen, but now we've slammed the gavel and said no. So now you've created a liability. In my mind, I don't know all the particulars of what's going to happen with some of these lawsuits and stuff, but there's a lot of revenue there, says everybody when I talk to them. There's a lot of hypocrisy. Some say they wouldn't have anything to do with it, but where are we going to get the money otherwise? And some of these things are just flighting. It'll only happen for 5 years, and it'll probably be on to something else. But on the positive side to marijuana, I have several family members and people I know that are using it, and it's helping their lives and keeping them alive. And people with autism and various other problems in life, it seems to be helpful to them. So from a positive standpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie.
I have been openly in support of a compromise of very hard, strict regulation that gets it out of our denser communities and farther away from our schools and our roads and the sight of our children. I worked on the Planning Commission, and I heard the first appeals coming in from the people that went into regulation. Now, the first appeals that came in were people that were denied their registration, and they were the easiest ones to pull out because they were pretty much the worst of the bad actors. So in the beginning, these people that tried going in under a strict regulation and they thought they could just coast through were being denied, and we had to hear all these stories from them. And at a majority of the time, they didn't present facts on how they were doing it right. So we held them to the letter of the law, and we denied them a majority of the time. I think we heard close to 100 appeals before the end of my term on the Planning Commission, and I think there was only one that was not denied. But those are the worst of the bad actors. I have seen the good farms. I've been on tours, and I've seen the ones that do jump through the hoops and do it right. I think there are ways to regulate it that can get out our communities through larger acreage, a minimum larger acreage, so that it's not so close to people, larger setbacks, and there's many, many other ways to skin this cat that we haven't looked into. The county's in a lot of litigation and getting sued right now, and there's a potential loss there.
Yeah, I believe my records have been real clear. I voted never once to have the marijuana approved. I voted against the emergency ordinance when it first came out last February. So I don't have to justify my position. It's clear to everybody in this room. Anyone that knows me knows my position. We keep hearing about the great money that's coming in from marijuana. We hear that we get 10 million, 12 million, 15 million. That's the gross. We never talk about the net. And we had to get this, we had to start a licensing operation, not just a regular, we had to issue the license. We are not capable of issuing a license. That's something the state does. If you're a barber, if you're a hairdresser, a doctor, a contractor, whatever you do professionally, you're licensed by the state of California. We had to hire 27 people to start issuing license. Our sheriff's department is not capable of issuing license like the state is. They cannot do the backgrounds that are necessary to do it. They're just local backgrounds. They can't do statewide backgrounds or worldwide. So the first board that came up with this made a disaster. And so I love all the time they say we're making this money. We'd have to have, just to break even on the farms, we'd have to have 250 farms to break even. That's before we make any money. That would just cover the cost of what we put in to do this. And those are never talked about. We're always talk just, this is the gross we're making. I'm a contractor, so if I sell a house for $100,000, that don't mean I put $100,000 in my pocket. It costs me a lot to build that house. If I net 10%, I'm doing good. So The pot issue with me has never been an issue. I always thought it was a criminal act. I still think it's a criminal act. And the United States government changes their position on it, then I would change my position. But I still would not want it in my neighborhood. I didn't move up here to a pot farm. I didn't move up here to get a job at an asphalt plant. I moved up here to retire and enjoy my life. And I was 30 years old when I did that. And this is one of them. Thank you.
Actually, I agree with Ben on this, except for the skinning the cat thing. Anyway, well, we do have regulation. A ban is regulation. So we now have regulation on cannabis that generates no tax or economic value. And in fact, provides negative financial benefits, since we must enforce a ban with no associated tax revenue. Everybody in District 5 that I go door to door with talks about they don't want commercial cannabis in residential areas. I think everybody in District 5 will agree with that, and that's something that a regulation could and will put into effect. But to share the economic benefit of cannabis growing, we need to enact strong regulations that protect our environment and public safety while generating the tax dollars that will pay for code and criminal enforcement. The sheriff is asking for additional staffing, and code enforcement needs to have resources to go after illegal grows in our neighborhoods. A logical way to fund these departments is through taxing law-abiding, regulated cannabis growers. And I've met some of these growers that Ben has met, and they want to do the right thing, who have a strong interest in shutting down the illegal growers. As we learn more about how to effectively regulate this industry by looking at what has happened in other counties and other states, we can design an appropriate model for our own situation and make it work. We don't necessarily have to take somebody else's plan and just adopt it the whole thing. We can design something that will fit our community, that with a discussion that we all have, that it's not like a plan is designed behind closed doors. We can have public hearings, we can have public discussions, as long as it takes for us to come up with a response that we can all agree with, and then we can move forward. But until that time, right now, it's just too divisive, and all we're doing is just arguing about something that about two extremes that we really shouldn't be settling for. Thank you.
Gentlemen, follow-ups, anybody?
Go ahead.
There's a statement saying that we make no money from Major C. Right now, we still get $500,000 from Major C with all the commercial pot farms gone, because we still have 3 dispensaries that pay into taxes of Major C. So we still collect $500,000 from Major C that goes into code enforcement, or will go to the sheriff for eradication. So that should be picked up on the budget. They looked at the budget. So that's an erroneous statement. They say we do not receive any money from Prop C, but we still receive $500,000 from Prop C.
It's called Measure C, and it's underneath the excise taxes line. It's the first year, including those dispensary in the 16-17 fiscal year, we collected $5,024,310. 17-18, we collected $8,277,350.25 for a total of $13,301,660.25 as of Tuesday this last week. We have potential $9 million carryover in this budget this year. So you talk about net, and we talk about the fact that there is a carryover, so we haven't spent all that money, because we have proof over a decade now of us continually deficit spending on these budgets. You don't have to be a budget expert to understand those simple numbers. Thank you.
Again, I agree with Ben. I mean, we wouldn't have a $9 million budget surplus if we didn't have these leftover tax dollars that come from Measure C. Now, the thing is that those Measure C dollars, or that $9 million is at risk because it's sort of a contingent liability. We don't know if there's going to be money clawed back from lawsuits that from cannabis farmers who feel like that they've been shortchanged by the process. And so a couple of things that Clyde said is in terms of we had $10 to $15 million gross, not net, and I'm wondering, if being on the board, there are ways that we could have asked our auditor to track those funds to make certain that we knew how much this enforcement was going to cost. I remember working with ERA funds back in the stimulus package that Obama put forth. We had to keep track with those ERA funds. We had to keep track of every dollar to say how many jobs those things produced, that those funds produced. And so we could have done the exact same thing with this.
All right, moving on, let's talk about the general plan. Ben, this one's coming to you. Describe your experience with land use planning, particularly general plans and community plans. How important is it to you that the county finish the effort to update the general plan, and how would you ensure that it is completed? Should the Board of Supervisors be more involved in the general plan process?
In my short time on the Planning Commission, we worked through the entire county when it came to zoning and requests for change on zoning, and we instated the community plans during that time into the general plan, which we then submitted to the Board of Supervisors in November of 2016. The Planning Commission had finished their job at that point. It was passed on for an environmental review. It is crucial we have a finished general plan, and there's multiple reasons. Reason one, it provides a clear path for economic viability. It gives proper places for industries that do not have impact on certain areas. It gives proper places for commercial. It gives proper places for agricultural, so on and so forth. Another reason we need a finished general plan. In 2014, the State Water Resources Control Board was going over the water rights throughout California, because we have more paper water rights in California than we have storage. They told the post-1914 water rights are up in the air, and you have to provide a clear, you have to, I lost my word. It's to retain our water rights, we bear the burden of proof, and that burden of proof is within the general plan in our future growth. So it shows how many people are going to be here in the future. Thank you.
I believe the question was, what role does a supervisor have in the general plan? Right now, the general plan is administrative action right now. So the supervisors are not doing it, the planning commission is not doing it, the administration is doing it, it's in the planning department, and we have parts subbed out to other agencies that's working with us on that. So our role is limited at this point. We will be having it come back within weeks to us, and when it comes back, it'll go out for public review. It'll be 60 days public review, and when that public review is over, it'll come back to the planning department, and they will answer all of the questions that come up. So it might be 100, it might be 1,000, I don't know what it'll be, but those questions will have to be answered. And when those are answered, they'll go to the planning commission, and they will do what their decisions. If they pass it, then it comes back to us. So my role on it as a supervisor, I will not see that until you see it. If I'm back there working on that general plan right now, I am committed, I'm in trouble. I am not allowed to see it until it's released to the public, because we represent you. So we're not in the back room smoking cigars, hashing out what the county's going to happen. That's not allowed. So our role in the general plan is limited. I mean, I get a bigger say because I get a vote on it. But I will not see that plan until all you folks see it. So for me to say that my role is something other than it is, I can put pressure on the planning department to a certain extent that you need to have it come forward. And that's about where we're at this point.
It's vital to update the general plan. No candidate or sitting board member has any significant experience with land use planning, and serving on the Planning Commission is meaningless unless the product produced was properly developed. And the current draft wasn't properly developed. The current plan is undergoing an environmental review, impact review. The current plan that is undergoing an environmental impact review is a flawed document that was stripped of its community area input in order to streamline something that could be passed quickly. Regrettably, these flaws will become evident when the EIR is released, and critical comments will take many months to address and possibly require significant update of the underlying document. And that's where the Board of Supervisors can weigh in after the EIR comes out, and we can discuss this in the open. The board must take a much more active role in pushing the general plan forward. Without this document, we cannot present our county to potential newcomers in a way that will engage them to come and invigorate our economy. We need to actively involve the various communities that make up Calaveras County, perhaps by updating the community area plans that were removed, and by releasing the Mintier Harnish draft plan that cost almost $1 million in taxpayer dollars and may hold some important background information.
Thank you, Bruce. Back to standing. I also worked on the Planning Commission for a year and a half, and that was back in 2012. And there's many issues that came up at that time. You can see the general plan is presented to us in kind of a folder fashion, and there's detail of every single town and the development of the areas. Well, this is crucial to know how to use the land. We're facing that right now with talking about growers and everything else. There's certain areas that are designated for certain uses, and there's a lot of people, through hypocrisy or otherwise, that are using their land for something other than what they should, and that's unfortunate. But for someone coming up into this county and wanting to invest their money, they want to know if they're doing the right thing. There's been several times where people come up here and want to subdivide a lot. They have a 20 and want to make 4 5s. Well, they say, no, you can only do 10s. Well, the general plan allows you to look at the broad spectrum of the whole county and see who needs what and what can be done in certain areas. Of course, you can petition for variances and all the other kind of resources that are available to you to make the development work, but overall, the general plan needs to help specify what can be done with the land and the proper use of the land, therefore. And one of the major things that I remember hearing during the discussions was the water rights. And there's a lot of water up here, but how it's being managed is pretty difficult if we're going to allow illegal growers to pour their fertilizers and so forth into the environment. One of the worst forms of fertilizer, though, is the engineered fertilizers, because they can't remove those as easily from the soil. And according to Brian of environmental control here, he said that's just our worst problem. So managing the land is a really important thing to do. Thank you.
Follow up?
The supervisors do have a role later on. In a few weeks, it will be, they're going through the process. I talked to the planning director recently, and he's working through with the environmental company that's doing the EIR on it. And then they'll be releasing it. It'll go through a 60-day public comment period. Then it goes back to the planning department, and they go through their administrative process. Then it goes back to the Planning Commission. And after it goes to the Planning Commission, they go through their process. And then it goes to the Board of Supervisors. And the supervisors have the same say, and actually more say than the Planning Commission, because they can say, no, the Planning Commission is wrong. We want it this way.
And to say that the Board of Supervisors as a whole may not have impact until the final vote is set, but in the whole process, going through the 60-day comment period and discussions and actively looking at the EIR, there's no reason why an individual supervisor can't take part in that discussion and help lead that discussion. And also, because a supervisor should understand more than most what's going on in the county and what the resources that are available from the county. And so, as an individual citizen, I would hope that any of us who would be lucky enough to be elected would take part in that general plan process.
All right, let's move on to growth. This one's coming over to you, Mr. Clapp. What is your position on growth in Calaveras County, specifically in District 5? Would you advocate for commercial development in Rancho Calaveras?
I have to disclaim I'm a developer. I used to do subdivisions. I made quite a bit of money from, I was lucky enough to retire when I was 30 years old. And that's because I moved up here when I was 30. Rancho is, there's been two things brought up on appeals to the board. One was, both of them were commercial, both of them were in two subdivisions. The board denied one because they wanted to go commercial and a subdivision is residential, it's zoned R2R, and we denied that because the subdivision, all those people bought into that subdivision, they all bought in common. So when they got their CCs and Rs, it says this is why they, and some of the contract that came with those individuals. And so we upheld that. There was another one that came up in Murphy's, we went different on because it was a subdivision that the one that wanted to go commercial, all the people when they bought into that subdivision was told that this one lot could go to commercial operations. And so we approved letting that person do it because everyone that bought that knew about it. So the question is, would I approve going commercial in Rancho? And no, I would not. I mean, that's real simple. I bought the asphalt plant because it's next to Rancho. Rancho is a subdivision. I bought into Rancho because it's 3,600 acres. It's one of the biggest subdivisions in California. And I protect it on my home. I know where I live will always be homes. I will not have an apartment complex. I will not have a mini mart next to a gas station. And that's the reason I bought there. I feel that I have a right to be in the residential because that's what I bought. So my position is I would protect all subdivisions, and subdivisions for residential will stay residential as far as I'm concerned. So I would not approve any residential, anything in a residential area that's going that way.
Regarding Calaveras County, the local economic growth we have seen in the past decades is sad. We've not taken part in any of the benefits of the generally good economy. We lose population because we have no jobs. Our schools lose students as families move away to find work. Startup businesses are rare and find it difficult to thrive in a county with declining incomes and a decreasing population. We cannot fade away to become a poor retirement community. We must have high-paying jobs that will attract businesses that will make our county economically more stable. We start with education, establishing a community college campus in the county that will keep our kids here. We must adopt a general plan that provides certainty for businesses choosing to locate here. And we need to review our fees and regulations to make certain that we are competitive in attracting businesses while not undermining the environmental qualities that make Calaveras County special. And with effective cannabis regulation, we can employ local people who spend money in our local economy. As to commercial development in District 5, Rancho has had a history of being residential, and most people moved here knowing that there would be no commercial development. And that has worked for now. However, the town of Jenny Lind was not included in this plan. It could be in the discussion to provide a coffee shop, Sunday store, maybe a brew pub, next to a possible county park on the river. The discussion should be had because we have many new neighbors in the past 20 years who may have a better idea on how to increase our overall quality of life.
Well, growth is the issue, and I think we ought to be saying it's not growth, we're going the other way. When I was on the school board, I noticed that kids went from 3,400 down to 32 and under 3,000, and now they're way below 3,000. So I hate to see people leaving, but for some of the same reasons that Bruce just pointed out, your jobs, you've got to have something for the kids. But I think there's the hidden job market in Rancho. If you Google the area, about 35 or 40 businesses pop up. I've got one of my own neighbors is loading up his appliance trucks. He's got those mini white vans that show up everywhere, and he's loading and unloading those at 5 in the morning and all kinds. So do you complain about that, or do you coexist with something like that? The other one is we don't want any businesses in here, but I know several people that own multiple homes. And they're taking income from those multiple homes. And isn't that a business? So you're running a business while you're living the homeless, but you want us to not, it's not a business that's going to offend you because you don't want a gas station. But I don't want a gas station either, believe me. There's plenty of those everywhere. but there should be something to acknowledge these small businesses. And I said it in my statement to the newspaper, it would be nice if there was a co-op or something like that, or just one really nice building where people could display their signs or wares, or at least be known to have a spot for delivery or something else. Doesn't have to be in Rancho, it could be in this area of Valley Springs, but it's really important to identify what's really going on here and address it on a one-by-one basis. There's money to be made here for everybody. You know, startup business like somebody in their garage invented a computer once. Who knows what can happen? Thank you.
I'll start with Calaveras County. We need economic growth. We need a diverse economic growth. In 2007, when the market crashed, Calaveras was hit harder than most areas around it because we were a single industry county, primarily building industry. And when it came to recreation and visitors coming, they didn't carry us through. We were hit hard. I've said before during the Board of Supervisors meetings, commercial cultivation is not the end-all, save-all, because that market fluctuates. But it can be part of the whole. We need multiple industries that are sustainable to come in our county. That way, when one drops out, the other three carry. When it comes to Rancho Calaveras, you live in Rancho Calaveras, you bought there for the rural mentality. The CC&Rs and the community plan that I helped work to insert into the draft general plan, say on there, no outdoor commercial use. But it does allow for such commercial uses such as preschools and daycares, because we realize we need those, because there's not enough of those for our children out there. There are other indoor commercial uses that are allowed within the area. And also, Jenny Lind is part of that plan, but it is the area that those uses are allowed because there are commercial areas within Jenny Lind area. We have our yard there for our road crew for the county. That's a huge commercial use. So the Jenny Lind area has commercial zoning, and that doesn't infringe on the rest of Rancho Calaveras. You buy in Rancho, you bought for that rural area. That's why I bought there. We should enjoy it as such, no commercial.
Paula? District 5 is, the biggest income in District 5 is retirement. We're made up to 40%. Calaveras County is 38% retired. And you put in Rancho as the highest part. We had the highest growth of retired people in Rancho than any other thing. So that's the money machine that drives Rancho. District 5 generated 150 new homes in the last year and a half. That generated an increase in property taxes, and we had over $1 million carryover from last year to this new budget of just property tax. We had a carryover sales tax. So there's a lot of other things that carried over into that $9 million. And so you have to realize what we are. Our biggest income right now is retirement people, and then tourists is the second. And you have to, when you plan for growth, it has to have those two main things in consideration for what the new growth should be. It has to blend in with what's existing here now.
I disagree. I think, you know, if you say that the retirement community is 40%, that means 60% is not retirement community. And that's still the majority. And so I really do value a diverse community that has varying ages. I love having a school in our district. I love being able to have a high school. If we could become a total retirement community, we won't have schools because everybody would be finished with their working life and their raising of children. So it may be true that there are a lot of retired people amongst us, but when I moved here, I didn't move to a retirement community. I mean, I moved to a mixed residential area that was not commercial. So I think a lot of us did not move to a retirement community.
Bruce is correct. 60% is the majority. 70% of those people in the working force travel outside the county for work. Over 70%. Those people leave the county and they don't come back to spend their money at Marvell. They spend their money outside the county while they're outside the county. We put in more stores, that provides more work. We have more people working, they build more homes. This all adds up to the greater economy as a whole. It takes each and every part of it to make the economy work.
Thank you. How are we doing with temperatures? We getting warm in here, or is it okay? Yeah. All right, we're going to turn the AC on a little bit. So next question. This one's coming over to Bruce. This is about budget. What is your position on the county's financial stability? And what would you do to address this as Calaveras moves into the future? Describe your experience with public agency budgeting, and what would be your highest priority for funding?
When our current District 5 supervisor provided the deciding vote in banning cannabis cultivation, he and the board majority did not replace the cannabis tax with any other funding source. They still haven't addressed this lack of general fund revenue, which is a critical $10 million, $11 million, $12 million in revenue loss to the general fund that normally brings in $64 million. Such a shortfall requires an awareness of the consequences and ability to generate positive solutions. This year we will be seeing modest increases in property taxes, sales taxes, and transient occupancy taxes. And with the approval of an increased TOT on the November ballot, we will see more revenue from these three taxes. But still, these increases will amount to less than $2 million, much less than what will be needed to properly regulate an out-of-control and illegal cannabis industry. We have a good fund balance at year-end, due in large part to last year's cannabis tax collections. With a ban, cannabis tax dollars will no longer go to filling the fund, while enforcement will drain it. At some point in the next year or two, these funds will be gone with nothing to fund enforcement. We need to plan for that time now. I have about 20 years of public agency budget experience in programs like Head Start, LIHEAP, weatherization, food banking, emergency shelter, child care subsidy, WIC, domestic violence programs, and more. Through these programs, I have actual experience in dealing with budget shortfalls. Most recently, in the past year, Atkins Colony Food Bank suffered a big $300,000 CDBG funding cut, requiring quick action in tightening payroll and rapidly looking for another funding replacement. It wasn't easy, and still there was no guarantee that hours wouldn't be cut further. In another case, we suspended a water conservation project contract that hadn't reimbursed expenses for 15 months. In both these cases, the normal flow of funds was disrupted, and we had to take action. I don't see such action coming from our current D5 supervisor, despite a regulatory solution that could at least fund enforcement. My highest priority for funding expenditure is public safety. That includes prevention and policing. We need to increase funding so as not to degrade our services by cutting expenditure.
Yeah, budget is a big problem. It's the major issue that you have to go over, but it's kind of hard to just stand here having not seen the entire budget and try and guess what we need to go over line by line and figure out what we can cut or what we can keep. But Bruce is absolutely spot on. He's done his homework and he knows what's going on in this county. And I can only agree with him rather than just re-quote figures to you. But you have to replace those funds, like he's saying. It's necessary to find something else to enhance what is being depleted. And there's so many other new problems that occur that you have to make room for. And now we're talking mental health issues and gun controls and all the other things that come up. And they might need money for funding mental health organizations specifically designed for those issues. And there's just so many things that can come up in the course of the years for the budget. You have to just constantly be going over it, and it's not the individual job of the supervisor. That's what they have the CAO for, but you can certainly sit down and grind it out. And I think the public could probably want to help to be more aware of that as well. Thank you.
I believe the most pressing issues facing the Board of Supervisors are recurring financial stability and adequately rendering the services to the community. This cut on recurring finances by putting in a ban has rendered those to be one-time funds. Those will carry us for a little while longer unless these lawsuits are successful. If these lawsuits are successful, that money may be gone and more. We need to take steps to address these. The financial stability of the county. First step is finalize the general plan. Second step is provide an economic path for sustainable agricultural, commercial, and industrial growth, along with other type of economic growth. And then we can start providing our services to the community that have not been provided for years. It costs $1.26 to buy what it cost $1 10 years ago. So even if we're making what type of money we were 10 years ago, it's not enough to provide the services we were providing 10 years ago. We need to address our deteriorating county roads and infrastructure. It's apparent this county is in favor of cultivating, because they're cultivating potholes. We need to address our solid waste issues and are expanding our facilities. We are all paying $150 a year on our properties if we have a structure there to continue being able to go to Rock Creek and dump our trash there.
Budget. What is your position on the county's financial stability, and what will you do to address this as Calaveras moves into the future? Describe your experience with public agency budgeting, and what would be your highest priority for budget?
Well, my experience on budgets is I was successful enough being a contractor to retire when I was 30 years old. We have a 700 form you can go down and pull, and you'll find that I'm quite well off on my 700 forms. So I've always been well on budgets. The area of the county budget, we have passed a balanced budget this year, and which hasn't been done in 10 years without using teeter funds. So our budget is solid. Everyone's running around, the sky's falling. The sky is not falling in. Our county is solid. We have hired more people to replace to refill the empty spots and stuff in the sheriff's department. So Calaveras County is good. The drug industry is trying to say that we need them because without their money we can't survive. We survived quite fine for them before they came here. We'll survive after they're gone. So I can care less about the drug money. The potholes we are $180 million in road structures that we have to do. I grant all that. But this did not happen in the last year on the new board. The new board that came in here has turned this county around, and we are doing well. And the budget speaks for itself.
I disagree that we were doing quite well without cannabis dollars. I'm not saying that it's milk and honey, but we've not had a positive fund balance like this in years, and we have been drawing on we have been going into the teeter fund the last 4 years before this. And even despite that, I'm not saying I think the services the amount of money that we pay our county staff is not sufficient. I think we're not doing super well, and I think we're losing quality people to places that can pay them more, particularly in the policing area. And just because you have a nice balance sheet on a Form 700, that doesn't necessarily, because you have a good personal financial statement right now, that doesn't translate over to a public funded budget where we have to worry about different sorts of inflows rather than just personal income.
Clyde's absolutely right. This $180 million in potholes and breaking down infrastructure on our roads has been going on for years because they were deficit spending, and if they would have spent the money on those roads, they would have deficit spent more. We would have been more broke. $13 million $301,660.25 collected on the Measure C taxes. It's $3 million of that was used last year to balance the 16-17 fiscal budget, admitted by our auditor control.
Would you please ask them not to talk about these folks?
You too, George. Come on.
No, I mean it.
George, please, go ahead, man.
Let Vince kind of start over.
Go ahead.
This county has many other services we need to address. Marijuana is not the end-all, save-all. And neither are any one industry. But them as a whole, if we move it out of our residential areas, can come together to solve our financial problems in the future.
Great. No. All right, next question. We're going to talk about revenue enhancements. Mr. Gustafson, this is coming to you. What avenues could the county explore to increase revenues? What tax increases, if any, would you support? And to the audience, if you could please, if you have a conversation, please have it outside. I want to make sure we're respectful to the candidates. Thank you.
I blew that, I wasn't listening to it at the moment, so just give me a
Okay, right.
revenue enhancement.
Yeah, revenue enhancements. What avenues could the county explore to increase revenues? What tax increases, if any, would you support?
Yeah, that's, I just did your beginning statement. Same thing with the school board. It's pretty bad when you have just a board of 5 people that can say, okay, let's vote for a bond, and the 5 vote for a bond, and suddenly a new bond is assessed to your taxes. Well, I just paid my boat tax, and on the boat tax, CUSD wants $6.17, and the county wants $1.17, and somebody else wants $1.47, and that's just on a $67 tax bill. So then on your house, you have taxes that are slapped on there, and you don't want it to be done behind your back, and you don't want to nickel and dime people until they're angry about it, to say the least. But the tax structure, you can see in all the different counties throughout the state for transportation and various other things, we pay a different sales tax percentage. And the same thing could happen here, but we don't want to pay more for it. We just want to get our money's worth for what we've got. And that's really, to me, the biggest problem throughout my dealings in public and personal life, is just to see the waste. There's so much waste. You know, that is given that somebody will spend something on something just because the fund is there for the moment, and before you know it, the fund's gone, and now what do you do? So that's not a good way to approach it, and we don't want to just assess value to your homes, and especially some of the people with multiple homes, you know, and that may have multiple problems. You know, do you want to pay that much for everybody's house, or are you just going to ripple effect and carry it on over and let the homeowner pay the difference? Well, at any rate, we just need to keep a good, close eye on where the money is going.
When it comes to taxes, darn, California taxes the heck out of us. The 45% that Clyde brought up of the retirees, I don't want to hit them with more taxes on their assessed values. A lot of them are on fixed incomes. So that's not something I really want to do. I would consider the TOT tax. We need to bring it up to the level that it is in surrounding areas. And it doesn't affect the locals as much as it does the people coming into the county. Those are who the tax is passed on to. Revenue enhancements. We kind of answer this throughout the questions before. Growth is a revenue enhancement. You provide more business, a very small percentage of their tax goes back into our coffers. That provides more jobs, which in turn more people build homes, which in turn they're paying more taxes into the coffers. And this is how we enhance our economy, through a diverse, sustainable economic machine.
You know, taxes, the TOT tax I would support, I am supporting. If you look at just the paper, Valley Springs News, that came out yesterday or today, is there was an accident, a lady lost her life. That lady was from out of the area. We furnished the medical aid and stuff for that person, we paid for it. And so all I want to do is have the people that come up here and put an impact on our community to pay for that impact. We had 6 drownings in our lakes. 5 of those were from out of the area. We paid for all those. Everyone in this group paid that. And so the TOT is just a fee that we charge visitors coming into our community to use our campgrounds or hotel rooms. And if something happens, the fire is one of the first person that will respond there. If it's a medical aid, they're there. If it's a fire, they're there. Hogan's is a good example. A couple of years ago, a tower got ran over. And so you had a medical aid there. And we received no money for that, from that campground for that medical aid. So we paid for it. So it's up, and that will be coming to you people, because if there's a tax, you vote for it. Not the 5 board members. We have the authority to put it on the ballot for you guys to, but that decision will be made by you. And so that decision, do you want to fund your fire? Do you want to fund your sheriff's department? Do you want to fund for roads? And for the visitor center, which actually advertises to get more visitors up here. So that's a decision that we will be asking you probably in November to make. And hopefully have a lot of these conversations. I agree with Ben on that. This is something that we're just asking the people to pay for the services they use. We're not trying to tax them. But right now, we're paying for that tax. That tax, we're not getting from them. We're paying out of the general fund. So that, I would support that. I am supporting it. I'm pushing that. I will work on getting that done. And I hope the other supervisors will do it too, because I still have.
As in our personal lives, we should attempt to have a diversity of revenue sources so that if one comes up short, another may fill in the gaps. The same holds true for government funding to ensure a solid revenue foundation for our general fund. In a district that has many retired people on fixed incomes, we cannot afford to increase property taxes, although with increased property values in the wake of the Butte fire, this funding source will be increasing slowly. Our sales tax is lower than Tuolumne or Amador counties and could be raised, with a part of it coming from tourists and visitors who benefit from our publicly funded infrastructure. Still, this is a regressive tax that hits low-income people the hardest and would be difficult to pass because it would have to go before the voters, and is likewise increasing slowly due to economic growth. Similarly, a transient occupancy tax is lower than the surrounding counties, and any increase in this will be generated by outside visitors. These two revenue streams, sales tax and transient occupancy taxes, however, will generate funds only depending upon the strength of our tourist economy. So we'll need to work on District 5 ideas to develop our Hogan recreational economy, and so we can do that, and we can work on that. But a responsible, well thought out, and publicly popular cannabis tax would generate income from people who can afford to pay, cannabis consumers, and would not be dependent on the tourism economy. And people who work here will spend their incomes on our local businesses, providing employment and increased tax revenue. Attracting businesses that add to the unique quality of Calaveras County will take a cooperative effort between regulatory agencies, local business organizations, school districts, and individual citizens. We need to openly and transparently develop an overall plan that we can all get behind and sell.
Any follow-up? Okay, moving on. Mr. Stopper, this is coming to you. This is about the asphalt plant. What is your position on the asphalt plant that was proposed to be built off of Hogan Dam Road by the Calaveras River, and has your position changed since the original controversy?
My original position is that everyone is afforded the opportunity to turn in an application for any type of business, no matter where you are. I could turn in an application for an asphalt plant for my rural residential property. Not that I would get it, but I could walk to the planning department and say, I'm willing to do a conditional use permit, turn in the application, hand them the money. They will take that money and that application, and they will tell you, we'll get back to you on that. I live right across the river from where they proposed the asphalt plant. Do I want that necessarily close to my child? No. But I am in favor of someone being able to go through the process, knowing what a majority of the people thought during when the asphalt plant was going in. I personally, as supervisor, would never support that. I would be like, you go through your process, and I would be all for transparency to the people. It's quite obviously political suicide to try to put an asphalt plant in near Rancho Calaveras. That's as simple as it gets.
I think everybody knows my position on the asphalt plant, and I opposed it. I removed the supervisor that tried to sneak it in, and I need to say no more. I think everybody's aware of my position on that.
I've always believed that the asphalt plant was a poorly planned and enacted project that would have put the Calaveras River in jeopardy of major environmental damage. I've never and never would never have supported this project. It should never have gotten to the stage of having to do an EAR if local input had been solicited at the onset.
Well, I don't think you want to lose the trust of the people by trying to do something behind their back. That's a pretty good sign of what the public lets you know. And that kind of was what happened there. I personally called George Warren. He used to be with Channel 10 News, now retired. And George Warren came out, and he and I walked down the street that night and talked about the asphalt plant. He set up a drone, and Bonnie, did he come over and talk to you too, or something like that? I know there was another story, another individual that was on the follow-up story that night. But yeah, our water is critical. You can't play a game with that. And you are correctly so allowed to run a business, and you're allowed to make the application like he said. So if everything had seemingly been up front and gone normally, there might have been a chance they could have done it, or maybe put in precautionary, they line out at Rock Creek, they have to line all that for possible contamination. So all those ponds are, there's ways to do things in life is all I'm trying to say. And this asphalt plant just kind of stuck each other with a fork in the eye or something. I don't know. It was just ugly and it didn't happen right. So there's other places, and obviously the need for business, they said, was going to bring in business, and they calculated one job. So my wife drives down Highway 26 every morning. That would be a crowded road with those 600 extra trucks. So it really amplifies. It's not just one or two simple issues, but it was there first, though. So when they sold the business, there were contingencies that went with it. So that was why it all got so screwy. Thank you.
Follow-ups?
Transparency moving forward is crucial. But we can't stop it with public comment. We have to let them go through the process to the point where it has to go through the environmental impact report. If you stop the process and just say no to them, they can sue the county. Just like the growers are suing the county. So you can't stop it for one use and then not stop it for another, and for a certain reason. You have to go through the full process. You can stop it before it gets going, but process is crucial. Transparency to the people so they know what's going in is crucial. And I do believe that there were certain elements of that missing with the original asphalt plant issue. CCWD is the one that put in the appeal. I work at the water treatment plant. I know what would happen if that type of element got into our water plant. We'd be all in trouble. Thank you.
Yeah, but still, I mean, the thing is that, yeah, maybe that in terms of getting to the point of having to develop an EIR, before that came to be, I believe that there could have been public hearings, discussions as to whether or not this was even a suitable use. I mean, what if it was a cyanide plant? I mean, would that have gone on as a possible use there, or any other sort of? There has to be some beginning point where it doesn't even enter into the planning process. And so this whole process was flawed in terms of the way it was engineered, the way it was designed, and Ben is right in terms of transparency. People have to know what they're getting into, and they should really understand. They should be able to see when projects like this are developed, how they're developed, and who's backing them.
All right, moving along. Top 3 challenges. What do you see, Mr. Clapp, as the top 3 challenges for Calaveras County?
Correct.
I think one of the biggest challenges is for me to get reelected so I can guarantee that pot doesn't go back into our community. Because the other 3 here definitely have one form or another of one type of regulations of pot. I'm totally against it. I will not support regulations in Calaveras County. And that's the biggest thing I see right now. That's the big fight right now. Because now the next fight for the next 2 years is to eradicate marijuana out of our county. That is the #1 issue with me.
Top 3 challenges.
That's pretty much it. I think the budget's going to take care of itself, of the growth that we're getting. And the general plan will be, there's another one that we was talking about, and the general plan should just work itself out through the year and be done all by the end of the year.
3 challenges. Number 1, competent board leadership with vision for the future. We need leaders who are not afraid to gather and organize information from all sources in order to present a way forward from here. We must be open to new ideas drawn from everyone in the county and not just the usual participants. Fiscal solvency. Calaveras does not have to be a poor county. Many small rural counties thrive. We need to develop a solid revenue foundation that should include a cannabis tax component and review all components of our finances to ensure that we're taking advantage of all funding sources that are available to us. And 3rd, attracting businesses and jobs to the county by encouraging excellence in our schools, safety on our streets, and beauty in our open spaces. We have to adopt a general plan that facilitates growth in sustainable industries such as tourism, agricultural processing, and technology. And we need to make quality broadband a reality for our citizens and businesses so that we can actively participate in the 21st century economy.
Thank you. 3 challenges. Well, they've mentioned them, and they're all key on our list of discussion points tonight. But bringing businesses here is important to be competitive. You know, I call Marvell, no offense to them, but the $5 store. Some people go to the dollar store, some people go to the $5 store. $5 for butter, $5 for bread, $5 for who knows what. So it's unfortunate that that's the fact. I worked grocery for 6 years, and things can be done differently there. Another area that I think is really critical, though, is roads in this area. And like I said, the cross-spending of some of being private roads, some being public roads, it's going to be difficult to solve that solution. And then hospitalization and medical care for everybody here is really important. They've talked about starting new facilities, and I haven't seen them start yet, but I hear it's coming soon. But as we all grow older, we want to make sure we're getting good care, and we don't want to have to drive a half an hour to an hour minimum to begin your care. So that's a really important issue as well. So taking care of the people, this whole plan should take care of the people and as a whole, not as an individual. Thank you.
We addressed more than 3 already. General plan, growth, so on and so forth. So I'll save some of my time in addressing those issues, because those start at the top of the game to get to the point where we have enough money to provide the proper services that the people in this county deserve. We need to address the roads. We need to address our landfill. Another thing we need to address is cost recovery. We have multiple disaster situations within Calaveras County. We have to show progress on our mitigation for getting these jobs done when it comes to tree mortality, when it comes to the flood and the loss of bridges, when it comes to the Butte fire. There is a sunset clause on a lot of these cost recovery. So if we don't show that we're doing the work, then we don't get the money back later on from FEMA and other avenues. And this goes hand in hand with grants, so on and so forth. Many of them have sunset clauses. We need to work with other districts throughout the county, the school districts, the water districts, so on and so forth. If we interwork, there's many different things when it comes to infrastructure with the water district and the county that cross together that we can plan smarter for the future. There are so many issues. I can't say there's just 3 because Calaveras County has a lot of issues we need to deal with. And we need somebody in there that's going to put in the hard work to get that done and do it by the facts. And I'm willing to do that for you.
One minute follow-up?
You know, Ben brought up a subject about the landfill, and right now we're within 1 to 2 years of a cell being filled up, and we'll have to have another cell. But there's a lot of talk, what are we gonna do, what are we gonna do? Well, we have $7 million set aside for that cell to be reconstructed now. That cell will cost anywhere from $1.4 to $4 million to do. And there's already $7 million earmarked for that. So a lot of the problems that people are saying is a disaster waiting has already, they're already taken care of before they get here. We have known that the cell wasn't going to be filled up for years. And so that money's been already set aside, and we already have bids and stuff on what that would cost to replace.
Anyone else thoughts?
That cell is on phase 2 of being filled up. Phase 3 is next. The pond, or phase 4, we're in phase 3. Phase 4 is next. So it costs so much money to close the first phase, so on and so forth. When you say it's going to cost $2 million for a new cell, I'm sorry, that's the liner. That's not even the whole part of the project. We get phase 4 going, we can build it up a little ways, and then we can stack higher on phase 3. This is how we prolong what we have now so that we can get the work done on the next cell for the future.
Moving right along. What is your future vision for District 5 in 10 years? Mr. Ducey, this is coming to you.
What I would like to see is a county that attracts a variety of families, retirees, and young people. An educational system from kindergarten through community college that provides skills for employment here and beyond. An economy that attracts new locally owned and operated businesses that will provide a reason for young people to stay in our county. An environment that is pristine and inviting for the health of our citizens and our wildlife. And a community that has services that are second to none in this state. It begins with fiscal responsibility, and I want to do this job. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to look down the road. A community is built of many types of people, old, young, so forth. We have lots of issues to deal with all those people within the community. We want to make sure that that infrastructure is taken care of for everyone's needs, from daycare all the way through to senior care. And it's vital that those are going to be available. They're going to be beautiful, safe, affordable. We can't just let it run amok, and hopefully at some point somebody has to impose that you need so many apartments in your area, or you need low-income housing, or there's other rules that can be imposed on areas. But I like our area. That's why I moved here in the first place.
Well, a 5-year plan should have the voice of the people in it. We need to come together for a proper vision, and that's through the general plan. I do want our schools to be better. We are not getting a service from Delta College that we're paying for. our money's going into Mountain House. We're losing that money. We voted for that. I will knock on doors at the Capitol and hold them to the fire on a regular basis, because I care about my kids, I care about your kids, I care about our future generations. They should have the opportunity to be educated here. We were promised that they would be provided that. And we voted for a bond that we're paying for, and they're not following through. That takes changed legislation at the state level. That takes people willing to put in the work and move outside our community, and I'm willing to do that for the people in our community on multiple different issues. And knock on those state doors and let them know that we're not happy that we aren't being provided a service that we're paying for. We were lied to.
The most important thing I see coming in the future is preserving our hospital. I think that's coming up on Measure A. You guys probably seen it in the ballot. And that's to lease the hospital, because the hospital, we own the hospital, it's ours. And so that's the reason the Board of Supervisors is not extending that lease. That you have to do that. That's what's coming before you on the ballot. And so Measure A is to extend the lease with Dignity Health, because when we put out for the new lease, is no one else wanted it. Dignity said they would continue. If you deny that lease extension, then Dignity goes away and we shut our hospital down, because it's $20 million to go in the hospital that we don't have. So right now, that's the most important thing that I know of right now. The next important thing is to keep the clinic that's coming in Valley Springs on target. It's a 10,000 square foot clinic. They're in the process of getting the permits now, and that is, so the issues right now are right now. They're not 5 years down the line. And the reason the hospital and the clinic's good is because it serves the residents of this area. When I said that we're close to 40% of seniors, that's from 65 up. If you drop down to 55, we're over 50%. I mean, it gets way high. And these are statistics that's furnished by the state of California, and it says that that will continue for the next 10 years. So the next 10 years, you're going to see a growth in the population of the elderly in this community. And we've actually extended 600 more than the local ones. But those are what I see. I don't see 10 years. It's right now we need to do it.
1 minute if you want to.
Yes. Well, you know, Clyde just sort of describes my problem with the Board of Supervisors. I've been going to the Board of Supervisors meetings for the last 4 months, and the focus is on today, on what we're going to do tomorrow, how we're going to get through this fiscal year. What is the fund balance 3 months from now? Without any seeming vision of where this county is going to be in 10 years. And maybe a lot of us aren't going to be living here in 10 years, or maybe a lot of us are, and maybe a lot of our kids will be. But still, the board should have some idea as to where they're leading us, rather than haphazardly jumping from one lily pad to the other as problems crop up. And so I think we really this board really needs leadership, and it needs a vision, and it needs to gather that vision from people who live here now, and from kids and young people who are going to want to live here for a while, and we just need to feed upon that. We can't just go haphazardly just solving tomorrow's problem tomorrow and then not worrying about the future.
Any other follow-ups? Okay, moving right along. Infrastructure is our next topic. This is coming to Mr. Gustafson. In light of the aging infrastructure in District 5 and Calaveras County as a whole, what would you do to address these challenges?
Well, you have to establish a budget for what your needs are, and I'd be repeating myself if I say it for the 4th time about roads and taxes, but the infrastructure is your incentive to bring people up here. Is there parking lots for shopping proper? Is there proper signage so you can figure out which way to go? Is somebody going to run over you on the way up here? I've called Caltrans about widening certain areas so you don't get tailgated and then passed in the morning. So you're all part of our community, and you just have to have a nice place to live. Where do you all go when people come to visit? Do you all just sit around your house and eat, or do you want to go out and have a nice brunch somewhere, or do you want to take a drive or go to a winery or just hang out at the lake, or, you know, that's your infrastructure. What are we going to do to enjoy each other's companionship as well as get to know each other, and where to bring friends and family when you come from out of town? It would be nice to have a real cute little town. When I was a sales rep in the 70s, Johnson & Johnson, I would drive around to many states and many towns within this state, and you would see places like St. Helena was just a little town, not much bigger than Valley Springs back then. But store by store, shop by shop, some of the people loved their community, and oops, their values went up and their property by hundreds of thousands of dollars. So providing a good infrastructure, something attractive, will attract that and maybe even revenue. Thank you.
It was brought up earlier that we're $180 million behind on our infrastructure. It's more when you consider more than just the roads, but the roads are the primary concern in District 5. We have issues that happen up the hill through storm issues that take precedence much of the time. We have to be able to lobby to be able to pull more of those resources down to our area when it applies, and then when it comes into our CSA 1 fund area, we have to be able to get the road crew down here to start working and getting these roads repaired. At the same time, it comes with an inter-district relationship that I was talking about earlier. We need to work with CCWD so we have like a timeline on when they're going to be replacing certain lines so that we aren't digging up roads after they've just been repaved. We need to be vocal and be able to work together as a county, as a whole, to be able to get these roads up to date. A lot of concerns I hear are that the rural designation on some of these back roads out here. If you're a rural designation and there's no posted speed limit, people are driving 55 miles an hour down a road. Berkesee and multiple other ones that people have said they're concerned about. We need to get posted signage up because people plowing down roads too fast that are very small is dangerous to our community, and it's also hard on our roads. We need to get stop signs in certain intersections so that, because a lot of these intersections, 4 ways, don't have stop signs. If somebody's driving 55, they'll stop. This slows them down. Posted speed limits, so on and so forth.
Now, right now, Gary Tofanelli, supervisor in District 1, him and myself is forming an underground utility district in Valley Springs. They'll come all the way up to Vista del Lago. And if you go downtown, you'll notice we go through where the new Dollar General is, you'll see the power lines above the street. It's underground underground, and the reason that is we do not have an underground utility district. And if you look on your PG&E bill, you pay a fee on that for underground utility districts. And right now, there's roughly $3.6 million left in that fund, and Gary and me grabbed that to bring it down to Valley Springs. And so the infrastructure is, and that would really enhance Valley Springs to get the wires down, and plus we have the new growth that's going to be going out towards this Vista del Lago, and so all that growth will have to be underground now. We won't have a problem with Dollar General, what they have there. So we are working on that right now, plus we're putting a lighting system in there, so when it comes in, the lighting will be taken care of. So that's what we're working on now, and that will cost us nothing. You know, that's over $3 million that we get from PG&E that we've already paid in. And so that's by being aware of what's happening and pooling that money instead of it came down to our district instead of going up. And that's what I'm talking about, working with other supervisors. You need to work with other supervisors. And I can sit there and say, gee, Clyde, you didn't get nothing now. That Valley Springs not your district. You're District 5. Well, I shop in Valley Springs. That affects me just as much. That affects everyone in this room. That's our town. And so that's why it's critical about working with other supervisors and knowing what's out there. And I understand a lot because I've been doing subdivisions for over 40 years. So I'm not new to this. I understand what land use is. I understand what development is. That's why I made my living. So that's what's important. So the underground utility district is a real plus for this area. It's something that we get, and it doesn't cost us anything. It costs.
You know, I just want to follow up on that. You know, when those things just went in, the auto store and the Dollar General, and you know, yeah, $3 million may not have cost us anything because it came out of a PG&E fund. But why couldn't we have charged that? Why couldn't we ask the developer who put those businesses in to pay for that, so we could save the $3 million and put it to something else? It just seems that, you know, yeah, that's a wonderful use of funds, but it goes to the transparency of some of these projects. I think a lot of people think that, you know, the tax dollars they send just goes to government and just goes into a black hole and you never see it again. And I'm all for transparency, and I'm all for opening up books and finding out where our funds are, how much money do we have in these projects, what's the next project that's coming up, rather than finding out, you know, 2 weeks later in the Valley Springs News or Enterprise that, oh, this utility district is burying some lines. You know, it'd be nice to know ahead of time rather than finding out in the newspaper afterwards. Without any new income, we could do smaller road projects slowly and rely on the state for projects for their roads using the much maligned gas tax. But you know, a gas tax is really not a bad way to raise money to fix your roads. You know, it's sort of a direct use. The more you use, the more you pay. And some of these state roads that have been repaired, we've already benefited from this. So. But water and sewer infrastructure, which is sort of coming up as an issue right now, is CCWD's responsibility. And CCWD has recently asked for a rate increase to help fix some of their pipes. And I don't support this increase, although the Board of Supervisors really has nothing to say about it. But I don't support the increase. It will hit those on fixed incomes the hardest. Public entities must first demonstrate conclusively that they are running efficiently and cost effectively before they ask for what's essentially a tax increase. A more detailed analysis of their administrative costs and a wage comparability survey shared with the public would have been a better way to start the rate increase conversation. CCWD should have cut administrative expenses before asking for a rate increase.
$3 million for underground utility district, that's fabulous. To put in any underground when it comes to infrastructure is outrageous. You aren't going far with $3 million. You're going down the street. CCWD, that also hurts us employees. We have no hand in the financial situation. I can tell you that all the employees I work with for CCWD are well qualified and we are undermanned. We can't get to the next leap fast enough. I work near guys that work in distribution. I work in operations, so I'm not necessarily out in the field, but I talk to gentlemen constantly. Infrastructure has been breaking down in Rancho Calaveras for a long time. The people here now weren't there then when that stuff got put in. They're jackhammered holes and refilled with rock, the same rock they jackhammered out when they put in the pipe. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. You put sand on it so it doesn't break the pipes. Infrastructure costs underground an extreme amount. Rancho Calaveras is far apart. More length and infrastructure per household. If it was Modesto, it would cost less. You have 8 houses an acre. Here, it costs more.
It's amazing how everyone just sloughs off $3 million. The thing is like one of the comments was, well, the developers do it. Well, if we're an underground utility district, the developers come in, they have to pay to put it underground. And if we don't have that underground utility, it goes up above. So it won't go underground unless we have the district. So the district, by having it, the developers come in and have to be underground. And so the $3 million is going to retrofit the other places that's already above ground. And so that's what that's for. And so if,
And that's fine, but the thing is on a lot of these decisions, it always seems like we're a day late and a dollar short. It seems like we're always trying to catch up and trying to do something after the cow's gotten out of the door. So, and that's well and good. But in terms of the what Ben was mentioning about water projects that cost money, I agree, and I have no gripe with paying working people what they need to do the job. My gripe is, and I come from administration, I know that administrative people think they're worth every dollar plus 10% of whatever they're making. And so my thing is, I want to make certain that administrative people are paid accordingly or paid properly, but that they're not overpaid. And I think when I look at CCWD's wages for their administrative staff, their top people, it is excessive.
Okay, moving on to sanctuary states. This is coming to you, Mr. Stopper. What is your position on sanctuary states? Do you support or oppose SB 54, the so-called sanctuary state law?
We've heard the recent sheriff's debates, and I think every candidate running for sheriff can agree right now. Sanctuary state ties their hands in upholding the law. I personally think that all people need to be held to the same level of the law across the board. A lot of the people out there are saying we're splitting up families when we're sending certain people home. Well, if I break the law, I shoot somebody in the leg, I rob a bank, I go to jail and my family's getting split up. We need to be all held to the same level of the law. There is a proper path for coming in the United States. I do believe that these kids that are here, we should find a way and restructure at the federal level. This is out of our hands. I don't support the sanctuary state as it's presented right now. That's it.
well, you got me in a spot here because I'll be coming up to the board on the 22nd of this month. So I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I'll tell you what my ideology is. First of all, I'm a U.S. citizen. I reside in California. You look up at the pulpit where we're at, you'll see three flags. You'll see the United States flag, you'll see the California flag, and you'll see the county flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America's flag, not to California. I would not do anything to jeopardize my citizenship. I think I've been blessed to be born here, and that if California goes one way, I will stick with the United States. I'm not going to jeopardize my citizenship with the United States. That's who I am. And my oath of office I took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States against foreign and domestic. And I also took the oath of office to uphold the Constitution of California. But when it comes down to push to shove, I know which direction I'm going. So I hope you all show up the 22nd and you can see how I'm going to vote. If you haven't figured that out yet. Thank you.
I'm wondering, is this a Calaveras County issue? Sheriff problem? Any vote at the supervisor level is advisory only. Immigration falls under federal jurisdiction. In passing SB 54, the state of California has decided that limiting policing and jail resources should be focused on enforcing local criminal activity. Given our own current funding situation and the full plate our sheriff has in front of him, I don't see how rural counties like Calaveras can afford to enforce federal law without increased funding. Local police have neither the staff nor expertise to enforce immigration law. Undocumented persons do not commit crimes any more than at any higher rate than others in our community, and when they do commit crimes, they will be prosecuted. Given the limited exposure our county has to such immigration violations, I believe issues like sanctuary are political distractions from the important work the board has before it.
Sanctuary city, well, we don't need a magnet to attract people to California. We seem to be growing at 39.8 million currently and growing. Our population demographics has really changed. We have just almost a problem status as far as the flip-flop about to take place, because we have fewer white people than what used to be minorities. So are we gonna start getting free stuff for our kids? Now, my wife teaches down in Stockton, and a lot of those kids are English learners. They just get here, and you're having to teach them senior English, and they can't even complete a sentence. So that's pretty difficult to do that job for her, but we have to figure out a way in California to balance all this out. People are here now. You can't just throw them back. The subject of breaking up families, that is an interesting one, because it's not really a good thing to break up families, but that was a choice that somebody made in the first place. There's a lot of choices to be made in life, and California doesn't need to be a victim for politics like that. I don't know, the gal that got shot in San Francisco, and then the guy goes free, and he just dropped the gun, and the bullet came out on its own, and you know, I mean, you can't hear stories like this. It's absurd for me to hear stuff like that. So again, to support Bruce, it's not a county-wide issue, it's a state issue, and we really need to, or a federal issue, we really need to get a handle on it. I don't know how it's going to end yet. I don't see the end game, but it has to be fair that we don't just pay for other people's livelihoods. California pays a lot of money in taxes. I know we all do, so it'd be nice to get some of the benefits for our own.
If you have sanctuary estate, we do lose out on federal funds. That's where that money is lost, Bruce. So it's not just us taking care of it. We can't bring in ICE. We can't bring in these other federal groups that would come in and help us deal with the situation when it's beyond our own control or our financial ability to take care of it. So there is a certain loss with sanctuary estate when it comes to certain issues. And when it comes to the cartels and the hills doing the illegal grows that we all want to get rid of, it takes those type of people to come in because they're on federal land. And we want to be able to have federal help when we can get it, because we aren't getting it enough.
Yeah, for local law enforcement, I'd rather rely on local funding. We don't have as much federal land as most other counties in this area. In terms of Calaveras County, I think we have the highest proportion of private land with SBI than most every foothill county, Sierra County. So we don't have that much federal land. So I would rather have the local control where our local sheriff are enforcing local laws rather than going out and attempting to enforce federal law.
Yeah, the board just received $45,000 a month or so ago, and then they just increased that by $30,000 the other day. And so, yeah, I really want federal money in here. I'm not going to reject federal money. I mean, that's $75,000 for eradicating drugs. And so, if the federal government wants to help me, they're more than welcome, because we need them. We need as much help we can to get the bad guys out of here.
Okay, so we're nearing 8 o'clock. We have 2 more questions. So we're going to do lightning round. We're going to do 1-minute answers and no follow-up, so we can get to closing statements and you all can head home. So, Clyde, coming to you. Board chair. District 5 has not had a board chair for almost a decade. How would you develop good working relationships with other board members so they do not bypass District 5 again for the chair position? Do you think it's important that the chair rotate among districts?
No, I don't. My position is I want to work with the board. I want the most qualified board we have. My position is I want what's good for my district, and that's what is important to me. I need a chair that will go ahead and get things on the agenda that I want on the agenda. And whose chair isn't that important to me? I need a board that I can work with. That's the most important thing I need.
Well, I disagree. The current lack of civility and between certain board members is embarrassing and counterproductive. We need to respect other supervisors just to get our work done. It's very important that the chair rotate among districts, and I would be voting to establish a strict standing rule that annually rotates the chair.
I agree wholeheartedly. It happened in the school board. It was going to be my turn next to be on the board, but you see there, the board sets up the agenda. I used to ask the other board members, how did you set up the agenda this week? And she goes, no, why? And I go, because you're supposed to. It's not supposed to be handed to you by the superintendent and then you follow along after that. You're supposed to set up your own board, your own ideals, your own issues. Well, they totally were remiss there, and to see them pass notes between each other during the meeting is pretty fascinating. At any rate, I would like to see some civility at the board level. Our District 5 does need some representation because it does make a difference. People respect you more. They don't think you just push over at that point.
Being board chair, you're able to get things on the agenda easier, and you're also able to stop things from getting on the agenda. It's important that each district does have an opportunity for representation at certain times. There is different structures throughout the state in different counties, so it's a matter of choice by that board at the time. So a majority of the board should decide how it's going to move forward, and that's just the way the law works. If you disagree with the other three that voted against what you want, too bad. Until next year, try again.
Okay, final question of the evening. Campaign spending cap. What is your position, coming over to you, Mr. DiDucci, what is your position on the idea of putting a spending cap on campaigns to even the financial playing field among candidates?
Judici. Anyway, this is a great idea. Elections should not give an advantage to the richest candidate or the one with the most developer dollars or funds from outside the area, especially in local elections where not only small funds can buy an election. And such limits would help solve problems with the current system. Current campaign disclosure rules provide good information when they're followed. However, as noted in the Calaveras Enterprise recently, if a candidate doesn't file the forms, there's no real punishment. In fact, the turnaround time between disclosure and an election could be so short as to not provide time for a response on the last-minute attack ad. So I would be for a spending cap.
I'm completely in favor of it. Your Form 470 limits you to $2,000 unless you're going to take money from somebody else, and then you've got to start declaring it. Well, I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I'm in a retired state myself, and I don't want to just spend money and put signs and litter up all your neighborhoods with signs down every single house, all the way down the street, and the first rain they all tip over and look ugly. I'm all for having a central location for a few signs. You've probably seen me put just my one sign back and forth every night so it doesn't get stolen again. And I think it's necessary that we have a cap. A couple $1,000 should be plenty of money to spend for a campaign in our size, and just have an area so we're not competing with who has the biggest and the most signs, because usually they get recalled.
Vote for me now, so you can recall me in 2 years. That seems to be the theme of Calaveras County these days. I hate the sign game. A spending cap is something I'm definitely willing to consider. There's multiple counties and cities that have them. So if there's a decision to do it in the future, that's fine. Until then, there isn't one. And file your forms on time. Some of us have, some of us haven't. I'm not going to throw rocks about that one. You know, the FPPC knows they'll, in due time, be the proper recourse. But be honest on your forms and be transparent about where the money's coming from so it doesn't bite you later on.
I financed my own campaign. I would spend under $2,000. I've taken no money from unions. I've taken no money from political parties. I've funded mine completely. I think $2,000 is more than sufficient. I will not hit $2,000 mark. And what it is once you hit either $2,000 from donations, or once you spend $2,000, then you have to claim where you got the money. And I believe $2,000 is sufficient for our area, and I've had no problems getting signs or anything else. 2,000 is plenty, and then that doesn't count your fees to register to run for office. The 2,000 is outside of that.
All right, gentlemen, we've reached the time for closing statements. We'll begin with Mr. Gustafson. You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here tonight. I know it's an effort to go to places and listen to people, especially us, maybe. I don't know. But I want the job too. I've worked in public service now for many, many years of my life. Since I was 16 years old, I was a shop steward in a union at the grocery store. I've worked through so many different areas, from grocery store. While I was in college, I worked night crew to try and make that happen, and that's a struggle. When I was working in one of the grocery stores, I was approached by the senior vice president of Johnson & Johnson, and he said, "Hey, kid, what are you doing? Why don't you work for us?" So that was pretty nice. You know, right out of the grocery store, you wonder where the hell is this place going to end up? Well, you know, I got to have a pretty nice job for a while. And from that job, I did a lot of traveling, and I got, like I was saying earlier, I got to see several different states, several different counties, and watch cities grow and develop. So I'm 67 years old. I've been around. I've seen an awful lot of things happen. And I think it's important that you take care of yourself, your family. Like I said earlier, again, you have to have a place to go. What do you want to do when your relatives come and visit from out of town? At first, it used to always be have to go back to the Bay Area. Well, now, people are wanting to come up here. My cousin just bought a house in Copperopolis the other day, and is proud to sell his house in the Bay Area, Fremont, $1.3 million with 4 offers before it listed that afternoon. And then he comes up here and spends $700,000 and has a palace. You know, so people from the Bay Area have benefited from that for years, and that's good for them. But the people that grew up here, you have to be concerned with too. Just like when I was living in Marin, people say, "Oh, are you a new Mariner or an old Mariner?" Because an old Mariner meant you're probably half hippie and you know, wanted to leave things just the way it was there too. Well, there was endangered ponds, oysters. Now there's a Nordstrom's. So you know, you can't say that nothing is going to stay the same forever. That's just it's just the way it is. And I want to be part of this development. I want to be part of your lives as well. I'd like to feel like all of you people could just come over and talk to me, not like, "Gee, that guy doesn't return my calls," or "I don't want to ever see him again," or "He was rude," or the school board tried to constantly say that people were rude or not rude, and that was their best way of undermining anybody, even if they wanted to get rid of a teacher. That was a good starting point. Let's make them look bad. So I don't want to make anybody look bad. I want to make you all look good and be proud of yourselves. Thank you.
My name is Benjamin Stopper. I'm asking for your vote in June. I'm here because I care about my community. I'm here because I feel I have the foresight, and I'm willing to put in the hard work, and I'm willing to make decisions based on the facts presented before me. I want to provide a strong, proper future for your children, my children, and be able to render the services to the retired people here that they deserve, because those services aren't up to par. It's going to take a lot of work. I'm your man to put in the work. I'm willing to put in the time, have the dedication to this community. I grew up here. I love this place. And I do want to see it preserved in a rural character and keep the beauty there. At the same time, we do need a certain amount of growth. I understand the diversity of our county, and my vote will not only count for District 5, it will count for the county as a whole, because not everything affects everybody the same. But District 5 is my first priority, the county is my second priority, then my family and me are my final priorities when it comes to working for the county. At home, families first. I want to ask you all for your vote. And if you're not from District 5, I appreciate your support because my vote will count for this county as a whole.
Yeah, I'm Clyde Clapp, I'm your supervisor, I'm asking for your vote. All these people here are decent people, they love the community as much as I do. We just have a different vision. And my vision is, from my background, is they all push off like the underground utility crews. That's big, that's something we get that doesn't cost us anything. But that's because of my background, that's the reason I knew where to get that, that's the reason I went for it. And my knowledge of being in construction and development for over 40 years is a big plus because I understand budgets, I understand dealing with the government, I understand dealing with everything to do with development. And that's what we are. A supervisor, we have the biggest control we have is over our land use issues. That's been my whole life. That's been 45 years of my life. And so my position is I want to preserve our neighborhoods. If we can't keep our neighborhoods, there's no reason to be living here. Because I'll leave, I don't need to be here. But I'll fight to keep our neighborhoods the way they are. And growth, I have nothing wrong with growth, I made my living with growth. And we did 150 homes in the last year and a half. You haven't heard me complain about, but I don't want to be paying for the development costs of these developers. Right now, we're getting stuck with the development costs. We're getting stuck with the off-street improvements. We're getting stuck with the expansions of the sewer plants, the water facilities. When Rancho came in, they bought the water. They put the utilities in, and then they dedicated it to CCWD. These new ones, developers come in, they're piggybacking off us. They're not paying for it. In fact, they run our system. They put, when I moved in here, I had 70 pounds pressure. They put these tanks in to expand the system, and my home went to 270 pounds. So I'm tired of paying for the other people coming here for their development. That's on them. They need to pay for any expansions or what they do. And I'm not against growth. I'm for growth, but it has to be controlled and it has to make sense to us. I just don't want to open the door for anyone to come in with an asphalt plant or anything else. So if I ask for your vote, and that's what I promise you. I will keep that promise to you like I kept my promise with the pot. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming here. Really appreciate it. It's really nice to see you all here. Calaveras County is a wonderful place in which to live. In the coming years, we will be facing challenges that will require flexibility, imagination, and practical understanding of both our potential and our limitations. Moving forward, we must plan for our long-term financial future with a solid revenue foundation. I pledge to do this. We must ensure that our public safety officials are sufficiently supported. I pledge to do this. We must embrace a new general plan that allows for sustainable growth that makes our county attractive to business and new residents. I pledge to do this. And we must be able to react to opportunities with a balance of practicality and vision, and I pledge to do this. My education and experience make me the best person to address these challenges. My master's degree in agricultural and managerial economics give me the tools to analyze and evaluate options before us. My 20 years experience in fiscal management, working on independent audits and governmental monitorings, give me a solid understanding of what can be done with government funding, and more importantly, what cannot be done with government funding. My many years on nonprofit boards of directors have taught me the different roles played by board and staff, and where both can work together for the common good. I know a conflict of interest when I see one, and know the practical needs for project bidding, adequate notice of public expenditure, and the need to observe the Brown Act. I need your vote to do this job. When you hire your next supervisor to the board, please consider these 3 key qualifications: education, experience, and judgment. When you do, I hope you will vote for me. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming. I also want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight. Mr. Clapp, I'd also like to thank all those who volunteered to put the chairs together. If people could lend a hand to help put them away, we'd very much appreciate it. Please feel free to talk to the candidates as we close up. Have a great night, everyone.